People think motion graphics are really easy to make, but if you've ever tried to create one inside After Effects, you know it takes at least 40 hours to get something decent. However, I've been using AI for the last 3 years, and I know what it's actually capable of. And the truth is that anyone can now create professional motion graphics with AI in less than 15 minutes. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the only 3 methods you need for that. I'll start with the essential one that every beginner must know, then we'll move on to the more advanced method, and finally, I'll reveal the entire AI process that real designers use right now. So let's start with the beginner method. For this one, we're only going to use text to video, but you need to be really careful with the AI model you choose, because you can write a perfect prompt, but if the model isn't built for the type of content you want to create, the final result won't look the way you expected. That's why for motion graphics, I'm going to use Seedance 2.0. Right now, this is one of the best video generation models, because it actually understands what you're trying to build inside the video. It thinks through the scene before generating, and that's exactly what we need when we're working with real data, clear labels, and specific information, like we usually do in motion graphics. And to access Seedance, I'm going to use Higgsfield. So if you want to follow along, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Once we're inside Higgsfield, let's go to the top section and click on the video tab. And this is where we're going to make our first motion graphic. The first thing we select from the left side panel is the model, and I'm going with Seedance 2.0. Then you'll see a section where you can add reference images, videos, or audio. But since we're only using a prompt for this example, we can leave that empty. For the duration, I'll go with 6 seconds. For the aspect ratio, I'll choose 16:9 since this graphic is going inside a horizontal video. The resolution stays at 1080p. Now let's go into the prompt section and paste this in. As you can see, the prompt itself is pretty short, but there are a few details inside that I want you to pay attention to. The first one is the translucent panels. The reason I included this is that when the panels stack on top of each other, you can still see through them, which makes the whole video feel a lot more professional. It also keeps the labels clear and readable the entire time. The next detail is that I told the AI to stack the panels one by one from bottom to top. And the reason I say this clearly is because when you give AI a vague description, it usually creates something unexpected. So you need to explain in simple words exactly what you want to happen. If I didn't tell it to stack the panels one by one on top of each other, Seedance would probably place them side by side, which is not what I want. Besides that, I also added a soft glow to each panel. Even though it's a small detail, I think it makes the whole animation feel smoother and more polished. However, there's one more thing at the bottom of the prompt that very few people actually use. And honestly, it's one of those small details that can make a big difference in the quality of your graphic. I'm talking about the audio. I added this because I wanted the clip to work on its own as a video instead of feeling like silent B-roll. So that's why I included subtle background sounds. But this really depends on the type of motion graphic you want to create. If it's just B-roll playing while you're talking or while something else is happening in the video, you probably don't want audio because it can mess up the entire edit. But if you want the clip to hold attention on its own, audio is one small detail that subconsciously makes it feel like a much better video. So let's click generate and look at the result. It honestly feels like something you'd see in a tech presentation. The whole thing looks clean, and the audio matches each panel landing perfectly. And that makes the entire clip feel like a motion graphic that took a professional designer a few hours to create. So this method is really easy to use, and it works perfectly when you want to create simple motion graphics in just a few minutes. But if you want something more advanced, with more details and more control over the final result, let me show you the second method. So next, we're going to use a starting frame. And the way this works is really simple. We first generate an image that already has all the details we want, and then we give that image to the AI, so the video starts from that exact point. You want to use this method when you already have a clear idea of the opening frame. So if you want to create a motion graphic for things like fitness or anatomy channels, this method is really useful. So before we even touch the video model, we're going to create the starting frame. For this, let's go to the image section, and the first thing we need to do is select the AI model. As you can see, you have access to all the popular ones like Nano Banana Pro, GPT Image 2, and many more. But for this video, I'm going with GPT Image 2 since it's one of the best options for the type of graphic I want to build. For the quality, I'll go with high. I'll set the resolution to 4K and the aspect ratio to 16:9. One more thing you can do here is change the number of generations it creates each time. But for now, I'll leave it at 1. Then I'll describe the exact image I want. In this case, it's a human body showing the muscles working underneath the skin while he throws a punch. Now let's hit generate and see what we get back. This looks really good. One thing I want to mention here is that I avoided words like photorealistic in the prompt because I want this to look like a clean anatomy design, not a super realistic image. That way, it doesn't get too complicated allocated and the viewer can easily follow what's happening on screen. Now we're going to take this image and use it as the starting frame for our motion design. So let's head back to the video section. First, make sure Seedance 2.0 is selected as the model, and then keep all the other settings the same as before. The only difference now is that we upload this image in the reference section right above the prompt box. But for this to work, it has to pass an eligibility test. So we click on this button and wait a few seconds until it says eligible. If it doesn't pass on the first try, just click it 2 or 3 more times, because from what I've seen, it usually works in the end. Once you get it done, we can write a short prompt for the video. And as you can see inside the prompt, I mentioned that the video needs to be in slow motion. This gives the viewer enough time to actually see how the muscles work, because at normal speed, the contraction happens too fast for the eye to catch. Then I also added a camera orbit around him, so the whole clip feels more dynamic. And on top of that, I mentioned that the muscles and tendons should visibly contract through the translucent skin, so the AI knows what should actually be animated during the punch. So let's hit generate and look at the result. Honestly, this feels like one of those fitness reels you see online. The slow motion is exactly what we wanted, and you can clearly see the muscles fire as the punch lands. And to create something like this manually, a 3D animator would need a few hours just to model and rig the body before the animation could even start. But there's another method that gives you full control over the final result, and that's the same method professional motion designers are using right now. Alright, so let's move on to the most advanced method. This one is pretty similar to the previous one, because we're still using a starting frame, but this time, there's one more thing we add on top. We also bring in an ending frame. So when the AI has both images, it can understand where the animation starts, where it needs to finish, and then create a smooth transformation between the two. And this method is really useful when you already know exactly what you want your video to look like at the beginning and at the end. That's why a lot of creators use it for finance graphics, data animations, or any visual where the final state needs to be very specific. So let's head back to the image section inside Higgsfield and generate our 2 reference images. For the first one, I'm going to create a simple chart with this prompt. There are a few things I want to point out about this. I'm keeping the chart low and simple in the first frame. That way, when we create the end frame, the spike actually has somewhere to grow. I also went with a dark background because it instantly makes the chart feel more cinematic and professional. So let's hit generate. And as you can see, the result is a simple chart, which is exactly what we need for the start of the transformation. Now for the end frame, instead of generating it from scratch, we can upload the start frame as a reference image and ask AI to edit it. So we keep GPT Image 2 selected and the settings stay the same as before. Now let's upload the starting frame, paste in this prompt, and generate. And this result looks really good. The first thing I like is that it keeps the same cinematic dashboard style from the starting frame, but now the line has a much stronger payoff. The blue and orange contrast works really well, and the glowing 1 million number makes it instantly clear where the viewer should look. Now let's head back to the video side of Higgsfield. First, let's make sure to select Seedance 2.0 as the model. Then upload both images and wait a few seconds until they show as eligible. After that, we can move on to the prompt, set the duration to 8 seconds, and keep the resolution and aspect ratio the same as before. As you can see, I asked for a glowing trail to follow the line as it spikes so that the viewer can clearly follow the growth on screen. And I also asked the particles to spark at the peak, so the final moment feels more entertaining and satisfying to watch. So let's actually see how the AI is going to interpret this. This looks really solid. I like how the line rises smoothly, while the glow makes the entire movement feel higher quality. But I think the best moment is when it hits 1 million and we get that nice pop-up. And the cool thing is that we didn't even have to animate any of this manually. We just gave the AI the starting and the end frame, and it created the full transition between them. So if you want to use any of the 3 methods you've learned today to create your own professional motion graphic, go sign up to Higgsfield and start using all the AI features inside. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.